Welcome to the Wizards of Ecom, your no-fluff playbook for online success. Each episode is fully packed with actionable tactics you can implement in your business right now. Take your life to a higher level and excel in your online success. It's time to work on you and your business. Let's do this. Welcome back to the Wizards of Ecom podcast. This is episode number 152. I'm joined today by my trusty co-host, Noemi Bolojang. Noemi, what's up?
What's up? It's awesome to be here on the show with you, obviously.
Obviously. We're recording this on the 13th of December. This episode is going to be released on the 20th of December. So a couple days, less than a week before Christmas. So happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody listening to this.
Happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
In today's episode, we're going to be discussing the 12 biggest lessons learned in 2021 and how to execute on them in 2022. I recently presented on this at our Amazon seller meetup group. You had a bunch of really good questions, but obviously having this sort of presentation with this many topics in a group that large, barely anybody gets to ask the questions that they want to ask on this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So the idea is anybody listening to this who did attend the session is going to hear some stuff that they may have heard before. However, based on us being able to have one-on-one dialogue, the goal is that we'll be able to dive deeper into each of these things.
Exactly.
Before getting into it, trying to make a habit to remind everybody so nobody says that I did not. Online Seller Cruise sets sail February 5th through the 13th. Take a second and jump over to onlinesellercruise.com and get your tickets. I really look forward to seeing you on the ship. We have an amazing lineup of speakers, some last second changes for people that, were opting not to get the vaccine or didn't feel comfortable with COVID at this time that are speakers. Have sat out for this one, will be on the next one, but there's a lot of other new and amazing speakers that are on the cruise. The cruise is powered by Elevate Brands, so I'm super excited to have them as a sponsor on the cruise. So getting to the meat and potatoes. And for anyone that gets to watch this video later, you get to see Noemi playing with her mic. That's amazing. The most professional.
Yes.
The first one, like I said, look at me. Like in my video, you get to see that I forgot to put the ladder away behind me. So I have a ladder with
no one
used to
would
hang
have
laundry.
Noticed. No one would have noticed though.
I just noticed. I can't unnotice it now.
Now anyone watching cannot unnotice.
So the first one on this list of 12 things, again, this is not necessarily a list of doom and gloom or bad stuff. This is just stuff that I learned this year or had reinforced this year and that are going to be prioritized next year so that I can do better. Mm-hmm. First one though is like an eye roller just because you can't listen or read anything in the space without somebody. Like everyone's heard this constantly, but we also can't ignore it. And that's supply chain and how much inventory to carry, specifically how much inventory to carry. Because as we were talking pre-show, there's a few other things in this list that could be rolled up into supply chain, but I feel like they're worth saying as standalone issues, but supply chain and how much inventory to carry. So since I've been talking so much, Noemi, how much inventory would you normally carry with a product? Like what was your approach to that?
Like our normal approach would be in 3 months inventory. So because our lead time and also like heads up for everyone listening, it also depends on your lead time. Our lead time was around 15 days and plus shipping, we did sea shipping. So we approximated around 3 months there. However, for this time, and also everyone was saying, invest in inventory because that's super important. What we did, we actually ordered inventory for 6 months. And now, hopefully, that's going to be a really great play because when our competitors are going out of stock, we have still stock there left. What was your approach?
First, we were blessed to be able to do this, but we ordered sometime, I think in June or July, and we ordered 9 months of inventory. So we have inventory to take us through May. Completely for two reasons. One was every year, no matter how aggressive we were in our projections, we were just growing so fast that we would run out and it would always be an issue. So every year it was sort of like this exaggerated. It's like, let's calculate this as far as we can. And then let's just add this exaggeration factor onto the end of it, because at that point we're not using data and place an order. This year I was just like, well, when I placed the order, the containers were 16.5, and I thought I was going to get them for like 9,500. And I'm like, it's not going to get better. So we placed a lot, which really hurt because cash flow, everything like that. Like we weren't ready, but we did 9 months. For me, moving forward in 2022, in addition to like the normal time, which I think I'm like a month or two more than you because my lead times are longer. Is I would normally hold about 5 months. I'm going to hold 3 to 5 months on top of that, which pushes me at close to a year of inventory on hand. And I don't think that's doable for most, most people starting their PL. Blessed to be in that position, but that's my approach. I just think the playing chicken with how close can I get my shipment back into FBA and be as close to only one master box extra, I think that's done.
All right. So a follow up there, because like most people, as you were saying, might be newbies and might just start out their PL. What's the best advice to give there, considering that, yes, the lead time might be not so long, but also like with shipping, everything, what's happening now, it's really like crazy. What could we give as an approximate to them to like, hey, how much inventory should you have?
I don't think somebody's, and I don't want to sound cold blooded with this, but a person's financial situation is their financial situation.
Yep.
If your financial situation can only allow you to order, say, a minimum order quantity from the factory, and you're not even at a stage where you can forecast sales and order extra, but you're determined to get into private label, just do it. But understand that going out of stock a lot is going to be the norm for you for quite some time until you do solve for those finances. Amazon recently rolled out, looks like they're slowly rolling it out to everyone, is, daily disbursements depending on like the metrics of your account and where you're at. Like, so that's going to be a huge relief on cash flow. One of our amazing sponsors, Sellers Funding, like be very choosy in who your strategic partners are, but we've moved away from a time that you can just say, I'm just into private label. No. And I'm just into private label and I'm just going to focus on my sourcing and talking to my factory in China. No, there's financial implications to having a business and you need to educate yourself on them. Sellers Funding, again, is a phenomenal resource on their website of just things you can do to get ready. And like we said, like I just said in the beginning before I just started running my mouth, is like, you got to just understand you're going to go out of stock.
Yep. Yeah. Also, by the way, Sellers Funding are going to be on the podcast. Alexandra already booked for next week. So probably they are going to be the first ones that are going to be on our episode in 2022. So yeah, 2022. That's the year.
I love them. They've been extremely supporting to the community. They're also going to be a sponsor, Online Seller Cruise. So they're just great. The tool that I'm most in love with them, and we did a podcast on this year, was Signals. I was on there with Ricardo Pero. Just a phenomenal tool, but don't get me started on that. Anything else? I know we could have this is another thing. This is going to be a challenging show to do. Is I feel that the 12 things that I'm mentioning, like each one of them could be a standalone episode.
Definitely, yes.
Right. So at some point, like you and I are going to have to like put our podcast host hats on and be like, okay, we could keep going with this, but for the sake of, we don't want people to be stuck listening to this for 12 hours. We have to like move on. Right. So let's move on. So the second one, understanding how your product is made. This is one that could have been rolled under supply chain because it's technically all the components of your product is supply chain. I put it differently because I have sort of some different stories to add to it. But out of curiosity, do you know with your product where all of it was made and how it was made?
I have no clue. And this is one of my major flaws, because when we try to reproduce or have someone else made our product, and I was asking also our supplier to like provide us all the info, they weren't able, which was like obviously a red flag there, but here, as you were saying, yeah, we did a lot of inspections all the time, we've seen all the details, we've seen everything, but I never wondered asking what it's made of, and now it's a pain. So that's a really, really great point. As you were saying, understanding how the product is made is super important. So what's your feedback there?
Well, I didn't know 100%. like I thought I went deeper because I asked my factories, and people would look at me like, oh my God, that's so like upper level. But like, where you got your factory to admit where they buy their raw materials from. But to be fair, like even looking at those raw materials, it's gibberish. And when you get that from a Chinese factory, it's in Mandarin. Like it's not like conveniently translated for you. I was just like, okay, I got this and I can pass this to my inspector. So I may have known a little bit more than everybody else, but I truly did not know, all the ins and outs of how my product is made. And I sort of told myself, well, I don't know all the ins and outs of bookkeeping and accounting. And it's because I hire someone. So I'm hiring a factory, and the onus is I have to put some trust that they know how to do this. I don't need to learn how to manufacture. I think that's true to a degree, but it's important now to know at least some of the more major components of your product on where it's made. So if you have a special label, if your bottle is shaped a certain way, if you have a cap, those are 3 components. Mm-hmm. And you need to be very aware of like, what is it made out of? A lot of supplement companies and not just supplement companies, like bottle companies, everything, they couldn't produce, they couldn't get inventory because they didn't have a cap. So I think Fernando in the group or somebody shared an article about aluminum cans. Was that in the Telegram chat? Did you read it?
I'm not sure.
And it has to do with, there's like a 6-year backlog on aluminum cans. Like think of the aluminum can for beer, but it's also sparkling water. It's also like a lot of other canned drinks. There's like a 6.5-year backlog on that. The production is just completely overwhelmed, and it had to do with a much higher than normal ordering volume during COVID. I guess more people were drinking during COVID at home with their spouse or the kids, and teaching school on a computer. They were drinking more, so it went up, and now there's a backlog. So like, what do you do if you knew that? If I was into aluminum cans and I read that, I'd be like, oh, there's no problem. My factory has that figured out. But now reading this and understanding how my product is made, it would help out a great deal. So another one, Tom, friend of Tom's, his friend, without saying the brand, has a dog chew toy. Mm-hmm. And this toy is an actual bone from like the antler of an animal. And this person looked at this and been like, well, there's only 3 sources for this. And they bought them out. They just bought them out. So like they eliminated their competition just by cornering the supply. So I think this is very important. And also, if you want to work with another factory, or you want to move your factory, say from Asia to somewhere else, which we'll get into later, then knowing how your product is made and to make it the quality that it is pretty critical.
And also, I think to add there as well, for example, what happened to us the last time when we ordered inventory, our sourcing agent, or actually our rep, was saying that, look, these 2 products or these 2 raw materials, as she was saying, are very in high demand, and you should be aware of that, because if someone else is going to order them, that's the client that it goes to, and they were asking, look, what we can do. We can, like, this time you give 10% off, and like from the 100%, the full payment, you give 10%, and next time you're giving the usual 30%, So somehow ask if the products that you're using, or the raw material of the products that you're going to use, is scarce. How do you say it? Scarce, or it's limited, or it's like in high demand. So those are the things that you can ask already, even though if you don't understand exactly how your product is made. But at least, look, I have a course of saying 3 components. How do we stand there? So that's a tip from our side that we learned also, because it happens to us.
Yeah, and something I would have done, like I don't know if this is I don't know what the chemical was that was short in your case, but like imagine if it was like a binder or something, and my factory told me that, it would at least allow me, or if I knew what the chemical was, it would at least allow me to go source that chemical, or hire someone real quick to go source that chemical, because the factory's ordering an amount that's commensurate to the size of your order. Mm-hmm. But if you find the source, and say this person's buying like a gallon, but you find the source and you try to buy barrels from them, you take advantage, you command a much, much better price. Now, what are you going to do with all those barrels? I personally would say, look, I just got you locked in at this cost factory. I'm going to give you these barrels in exchange for, and just lowering your product to like absolute cost to them. And it leaves you in a much better position because you're ordering with your brand in mind. They're ordering with, I only order supplies based on what the person's order is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think? We move on that one?
Yes, sir.
MFP is my next one. Merchant fulfilled plan. I was set up really nice for merchant fulfilled and seller fulfilled Prime when the pandemic hit. Not so much seller fulfilled Prime anymore, but I really seeing from people in the group, and it's playing out right now, like as we're recording this, but not having a merchant fulfilled plan, I don't think is being responsible anymore. Just my opinion. Now I got to ask you, do you have a merchant fulfilled plan?
Not necessarily had a plan. We had, at this point, we're using a warehouse. They are also offering 3PL services. However, what we did so far, we fulfilled them ourselves only because there weren't a high amount of orders, and also because we were trying out some things with 3-packs and 5-packs. We're not doing that anymore. However, it's there. So in case that it's needed, it's there. Also, like here, a good plan for you would be, if you're going to look right now after listening to this episode, for 3PL services, have at least 2 3PL services in plan, because otherwise, if you're relying only on one, it might happen. Anything can happen to them, so having a backup plan, it's a really good use of your relationships there, I would say. How did you go about it, Carlos?
Oh, definitely. Layers upon layers. I can handle pretty robust merchant fulfilled shipping internally, but we also use several different merchant fulfilled warehouses. Delivers a new one for us. It leaves a lot to be desired right now. But they're new and they're getting like, let me be fair. It leaves a lot to be desired when you compare it to FBA, which is very set it and forget it.
Yes.
But it's better than anything else out there that I'm dealing with for what they could do. And they're getting better and better, like every day, literally. Really improving. Great company. There's also ShipBob, and then my favorite, which would be ShipMonk. So I have a bunch of them because of what you just said. It's good to have more than one relationship and backup plans to backup plans. Also, these places are located in different places strategically. I could see a time that Deliver gets so good that the only 2 fulfillment services I'm using are 3, my FBM, like my own internally, Deliver, and FBA, and sort of eliminating everything else.
When you were saying my FBM, I was like, is that a service? I was about to look it up, and my FBM, that's actually a really cool domain name.
Yeah, my FBA is a really good prep center. Yeah, but no, my FBM. That sounded good when I said it too. I was like, is that a company name?
Yeah, I was like, is that a company name? No, but it's really, really good. And they're like also how to make that, or when to build up those relationships.
When because you don't now need them.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. If you're saying, well, I don't need them right now, that's something I want to do later, that's the very definition of when you should look up and get your 3PLs, because when that changes, it'll be bad.
Yeah. We also have a really great episode with Alexei Lil from our sister podcast, Wizards of Ecom in Espanol, and we are going through all the questions that you should ask your 3PL before, like when you're vetting them. So
yeah, and he has a 3PL here in Miami, Florida, and it's not like he's just one of these pop-up 3PLs either that are needing business to survive. He's really focusing on quality. Miami's not the best for geographically for you to like put all of your eggs in one 3PL, but really knows what he's doing. And he's the type of person that if you say all his workers went on strike, he would get in there and make sure your stuff gets out. So,
and he is an Amazon seller. Yes. Remore Corp. And he's also an Amazon seller. So he understands all the pains that are going into what's happening if by any chance they are not able to help you out. So yeah, I think that that could wrap up the merchant fulfilling plan.
This one, I'm gonna have to like muzzle myself at some point, or you're gonna have to rein me in, because this is a big one for me, and it's alternatives to China. I have a little like note here that says USA and out, and that's just because I'm thinking instead of saying, oh, I want to launch a product, let's find this thing in China, I'm just going to do a tweak, and that says, I want to launch this product, let's find it in the US. And if the US doesn't work, start spreading out from the US. And if I spread all the way out, that I make it to the other side of the earth and we get to China, so be it. I order from China. Or I weigh what comes with ordering from China and decide if I still want to order it. But that is my new approach. I almost want to say USA first, but then I think somebody that doesn't know me might say it's out of some like misguided patriotism or something like that to country.
I'm also doing the same thing. There's no patriotism.
What about you? Like what is your approach to alternatives to China?
Well, first we started out on Mexico and Colombia. And we had the sourcing agent trying to find there someone to manufacture our products. And then also there I was told that it's like 20 or 30% more expensive than what we produce, our current cost, right? And that would be an alternative. Here in the US, we are actually going to produce a different product that it's not in, like it's a new brand. And that's also going to be everything in a bottle, which is with Ed from, how it's called the company?
Tropical Products.
From Tropical Products, yeah. So we tried with him as well. And honestly, I couldn't believe the fact that it's actually way cheaper than I expected. I think that was my first wow. All the time when I was looking here and was talking to everyone sourcing from China, everyone was like, oh, in China is so inexpensive. Yeah, it might be inexpensive, but shipping costs and all the other stuff, and like at some point everything is going to go up. Prices are going to go up. And here, like the alternative, like USA, first off, they speak English fluently, and it's way easier. And also the culture, it's there. It's way easier to relate, I think, to when you're sourcing here.
Yeah, and in your case, I think a flight to Boston's $100.
Yeah, exactly. That was the first thing that I looked up. No, that was the second thing. First, the what are they doing? What are they manufacturing? And the second thing, like how much would it cost a flight to Boston? And it's really like doable. So
yeah, I'd say one of the things I'm mostly shocked about is what you just said, that with exceptions, obviously, how much more affordable it is to source in the Americas, right? Canada, US, and Central South America. Like, then I have been led to believe. Like, I feel like I drank the Kool-Aid on that for way too long. I was toying with the idea of like getting a little more aggressive about it pre-COVID. COVID accelerated it. I think it's important that you and I are not saying, I don't think you're saying this because I'm not either, but like, we're not saying China's not a good place to source.
No, we're not. Definitely not. It's just like having in mind something that it's something else out there as well. It's not only China, I'm like have these bad jokes with courses and so on. Yes, courses are going to teach you that that's the first thing to do, go. And truth is that Alibaba, it's still like the king, and they're really good. Everything it's like a la carte, and you can do whatever you want. Here it's going to be a bit harder because, as we were talking about manufacturing, it's like it's not anymore like when it's a product. Let's, for example, the mouse. It has a ton of components. Each component, maybe for some of them you can find like at one factory. The second one you can find at a different factory. So I think that's also something that it's throwing people off, like looking for how to combine everything. So I think that's also price. Besides price, that's also something that's throwing people off. So yeah, it's as Carlos is always saying, everything what is not so easy, it's your advantage. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, Ramon, leave it to Ramon. Ramon gives an example about, he agrees with us, by the way, but he gives an example of how impossible, air quotes, impossible it would be to source a board game from the US versus how it would be from China. And to say again, there are going to be plenty of instances where it does make sense to source from China. And if you are passionate about launching or committed to launching a board game brand, then you may be working with China or a factory in Asia. I don't have enough resources currently. We'll record a similar episode this time next year, and I'll be saying something different. Like, I'll answer you better. But I'm betting that there is not a factory that we could just go order a Monopoly type game from, with all the pieces and the cards and the money and all that, from a factory and launch it. But there is factories that can make all of the components. It's just going to be harder to stitch everything together. And so, yeah, that's a goal this year for me, is solving for that. And just becoming more aware on, I was talking to Alex at the end of the meetup Saturday, and it was just the fish brand that I'm going to launch at some point next year. We're talking about, like, what would it, since like the first 10 products are liquid based, what would that look like to actually manufacture? And I was like, look, I'm going to budget like $300K for this. If it's going to cost more, then I might pause and order from China, let's say. But he goes, $300K, it's going to cost you less than $15K. And he just rattled off like where to buy it. Here's the machines you need. Here's the labeler. The most expensive piece was actually a label machine that put your label on the bottle, and not even the mixing and everything else. So it's exciting.
I love that you said that, because most of the time what's happening, and also with the board game, it might be that it's harder to find, but in the same time, have you found, or have you looked for it? Like, how intensely have you looked for it? I think that also this a la carte, or like ready to go, like everything what Alibaba is offering right now, it made us so not necessarily lazy, but it made you think that things that are actually easy to find, it's way harder to find. It like paralyzes you, or your brain, to think outside of it. So definitely I agree with what you were saying.
Yeah, it like almost enabled us as brand owners, private label sellers, to achieve certain heights, and those heights being gross sales or successes that otherwise would not have been able to be achieved without certain foundational skills that come from sourcing products. And I think everyone should take a step back and like reevaluate here. If it doesn't apply, keep going, but take that step back, like listen to the things on this episode, listen to this specifically, and just ask yourself, like, if you're product agnostic, why would you go to Asia? Like, why would you go to China with a 25% tariff and long lead times and difficulty in coming in? You really don't care what the product is. You just need it to fit some criteria. So don't force sourcing from China into the mix. It's truly not necessary.
Definitely well said.
Want to move on the next one? More trade shows, less conferences. I'm loving this. So for anyone listening to this that does not know the difference, because these terms are thrown around interchangeably, trade shows are more like business oriented, for you to meet businesses, to meet other businesses, and one of those businesses has goods or services to sell. And you're there because you're looking for people who have goods and services to sell in that industry. Specifically, there's one we're going to that's plant-based it's like, what is it? Like, I think it's like the second or it's like the third week of January in Tampa. So I know, going to this trade show, that all of the people that sell all of the different products that are needed in this industry, they have booths that they paid for to meet people that are looking to buy the things that they have. That's a trade show. Versus a conference would be, say, a conference in the botanicals or plant space would be a lot of different presentations where people are getting up there with PowerPoints and talking about how to get better at selling your plants, or that sort of thing, or getting customers to buy your plants. in the Amazon space, we have Amazon seller conferences, and now they seem to happen once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And in the trade shows, though, trade shows is a lot different. Trade shows they also cover every industry. And I'm just saying that I'm going to go to more trade shows next year than I am conferences. I hear Hugh.
I'm trying to stop him.
Hugh wants to be on the podcast, and that's all right.
He's reading. Yeah, he's like you cannot command a cat, apparently, which is bad publicity. Yeah, but I love how you put it, the difference between between conferences and between, basically the second one I see it as, conferences I see it as networking way more than the first one, networking between services versus networking between what do you actually need and to produce money, maybe.
It's funny you say that, because that is the last, like, God, I want to say almost 50 to 100 conferences I've gone to. That would be my description of the conference. Was it good or bad for networking? Right?
Wow.
Was it good or bad for networking?
Yeah. We didn't even talk about this, like how to come up with it. I love it.
But that's sort of like I don't know. It's like a pet peeve of mine. It sort of bothers me, because I remember a day that I would go to conferences and I wasn't going there for the networking. As a matter of fact, networking is just something I've gotten good at in the last 7 or 8 years, and selling for 15. So like, I wasn't a networker. I was like the person just standing in the corner, like nervous to strike up a conversation or not knowing what to do. I went to conferences to learn new things that I could take home and execute on. It's been a long time since I've heard somebody say, I love that conference. I went to it and it showed me how to do blank, blank, and blank. And I did that, and I'm now making more money, or some variation of that. It's all networking, and networking is great, but I wish we could get back to conferences being more. I'd love to go to a conference that was like to learn some things that I would be able to apply to my business.
Maybe for a different platform, I believe, because what I see here, like coming from the Europe mindset, what was in Europe, like back then, it was 2 years ago, but back then, it was like you would have loved to go to attend these events, because there were only a few of them, maybe one per year or one in 2 years or so on. So that it was like really, and you were really learning a lot of stuff because you didn't have those people with that knowledge and that information available to you right now, So I think also it has to do with, because the Amazon platform or Amazon.com selling on the US platform became oversaturated. Also, that's why we have so many services, so many, like, everyone is trying to make a living out of this, and that's their way how to become sociable with everyone else there. I'm very rude. He's just smiling.
I think you're right. I'm trying to stop myself from going on like a full blown rant on it, because that's not like the point of the point. But more trade shows, less conferences to me means I'm going to build out my network of factories, vendors, and strategic partnerships in the Americas.
Yeah.
North, Central, and South America, that are going to help me elevate my brands, open up, channels of thinking I otherwise would not if I didn't have access and knowledge of this, as well as help be a better resource for the community when somebody has an issue and they want to do something and they think that the first thing they must do is go to China and find a factory. Make sense?
And that's why you're the master. Amen to that. Let's go to the last point.
Next one. So building a community, I think the show's definitely going on longer than we thought. And we suspected this. So I think we break, I think we save like the other 6 for next week's episode.
Yeah,
but
we will have
my final one here, I can't make a list without forcing this in somehow. And it's building community. This is one of the ones that I do anyway. Like I do this. Like I won't get into a business if I can't do this. So this was really validated for me. As soon as the pandemic hit, I remember I'd mentioned this before in the meetup. There was this brand and they did exercise bands, right? And for some reason, their exercise bands were deemed as unessential. Go figure. And this is at a time when everyone I ordered a Peloton right? Like everyone
I still remember when you ordered the Peloton.
and the first 3 times that I used it, right?
Yes, I do. And all the pictures.
Yeah. So like, imagine being this brand with a whole bunch of inventory and they're calling me in a panic about this whole, like, we're not an essential product. We need to do something. Our sales have stopped. And I'm just like, just email your people and do merchant fulfilled. They had no email list. They had no community. They had no tribe, no social media, no anything, because they didn't need to do it. All they needed was Amazon PPC, whatever flavor of the week ranking method that was out there. And that's it. And I was just like, wow, the people that really did have a community that they got got closer, they grew stronger. They got to hang out and do lives and Zooms and like all this other stuff. They thrived instead of survived. I think that's, for me, major validation that building community is important for you and your brand. Like, how important would it be if you saw a product and you were like, okay, by your criteria, this product would be a good one to launch. Would you launch it if there was no way for you to build community around it?
Not anymore. Not anymore, especially not now. I totally agree with you. Really, it's super important, community building. However, I think from my side, as you were saying, like you reached out to your emails, you reached out to your community. In my scenario, it was like, because we had influencers there, I reached out to that side. We didn't have email marketing previously, so that's something new that we learned, and yet again, I'm saying this from a new seller's perspective. If you're going to start, you might get overwhelmed with Amazon. So everything what you were just saying about Amazon PPC and everything, that's what you're going to do. And just focus on the important stuff. And here, the important stuff is going to be community building, really, And also with with this new product that we're going to launch, and with that one as well, I'm trying to build up a community to see how it's going to work. It's totally out of my comfort zone. It's not the product that I love most, or not the niche that I love most. Still, I think that having a community there and starting right, it would give an advantage to us, because probably no one else does in the industry. So, or in that particular niche,
I support that message 100%. There's no argument for not having a community. I will say though, that if you already have a product that wasn't sourced with community in mind, it may be a much harder fit. Like, it may be square peg, round hole. So having that in mind when you do start, I think is very important. So this episode has gone on for a bit. I don't know if you want to add anything, Noemi. If not, I think it'd be a good idea to maybe wrap this up. Otherwise, no one's going to listen to the last 6 of these 12. Like, everybody's like reaching their destination.
What do you mean? They are. I'm here. I'm blonde.
Yeah.
Good publicity.
We'll wrap this up to make it more digestible on the holidays, give somebody else something to look forward to. If you're listening to this, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. It's coming up soon. Don't be a stranger. Jump in the Telegram, say hi to everyone. If you're not part of the Telegram community, you can find us at amazongroupchat.com.
Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year, and see you next Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.
It was fun sharing this episode with you. If you found value in what you've heard, please show your love with a subscribe, rate, and review of the show. Until next time.